Science and Politics, episode 92. Is that right? Or 93?
93.
93.
Yep, that Signy Die episode sort of skipped
That was a
over.
rough one.
Yeah, man, we were, in session and we scheduled this thing for 5:30 to 7:30, but we didn't get out till almost 7, so, it was just a lot of, logistics.
Yeah. And we didn't have a big crowd there. But let's go ahead and thank our sponsor,
Yeah.
Comer Distributing, and this week's brew.
Highland Brewing out of Asheville's offering up Highland Haze IPA. On the can it says juicy and fresh. What you think?
I think it's juicy and fresh. For an IPA, for sure.
Yeah. Folks, if you like, it's refreshing too. It's a good sort of warm weather. And it doesn't have all that hoppiness on the back end. It's not too bitter. So I could drink this one.
You still got the hoppy flavor, but it's not overwhelming.
It's toned down a little bit.
Yeah.
For sure. So, but yeah, as we were talking earlier, busy last week of session. So busy, they took us to OT.
Yes.
Got a little overtime on Friday.
And we're still kind of
in
OT.
And so, folks, if you haven't been paying attention, I know there's a lot of things going on with high school graduation, college graduations, and all those things. We did finish out our regular session on Thursday. We adjourned at 5 p.m., only to learn later on that evening that the governor was calling us back for a special session, and we gabbled back in. I believe it was at 11 a.m. on Friday.
Yeah.
And went to about, 3:30 or so? I can't remember.
On that Friday?
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. The past 2 weeks have kind of just ran together.
Yeah. And you got a lot of things going on here. You got sort of, I think, just fatigue from not just these two members, but...
Well, we had 50-plus bills passed just...
Signy Die week.
Signy Die week.
Yeah. And, all individual members are trying to push their individual efforts and their legislation across the finish line if they can.
Yes.
Which is a difficult thing to do this late in the game because you don't only have to deal with your colleagues in the House, but in order to make sure the Senate is prioritizing your legislation.
I spent a lot of time over there.
Yeah. So there's that. And, so it was just a hectic, busy week around the chamber, man. We had so many senators coming in because, again, the senators have their priorities that are over in the House, and they're trying to work with, some allies in the House to maybe get their stuff pulled.
What can we do to get it on the floor?
Yeah,
what can we do to go ahead and get this?
Can we get unanimous consent?
Yeah.
Can we get So yeah, just busy last week of session. Got a lot of stuff done. And folks, I know the special session that we're in now has been making a lot of news in this reapportionment or redistricting of the congressional seats. I know that's gotten a lot of attention, but and we will deal with that. We will talk about that and how each of us voted, but did want to spend a little bit of time on looking back at our session and just, seeing what did we get accomplished.
Right. I mean, we started off, Student Privacy Act was one of the biggest bills that we're working on, and that's going to be in conference right now, so that should pass. And
folks, that's just the little boys go to boys' bathrooms, little girls go to girls' bathrooms. Same thing with locker rooms and things of that nature, overnight stays, boys with boys, girls with girls. Not that difficult. Senate made some amendments, and that we're going to go to conference to try to hash out.
Yep.
That one, I think, is going to get to the governor.
Yes, I certainly believe so. And that was one that we were worried about wasn't going to get there. Same thing with REINS Act.
Yeah.
Which is going to eliminate so many of our current regulations. That's got to go to conference as well. So we're still waiting on that conference committee to come back to decide whether we're going to move it forward. But that's one that passed very early last year.
Right.
And has just been sitting and waiting.
Yep. We also did have the hospital bed bill late in the session. Both the Senate and the House passed that bill. And for folks who don't know, especially this past winter when we had a lot of cases of flu, along with just the normal typical emergencies going on, our EDs around the state and our area hospitals were getting overwhelmed with patients. And what was happening was hospitals were triaging or stabilizing patients, putting them in beds, and then those beds were in hallways. And there is current regulations that the Department of Public Health has authority and responsibility over about egress, safe egress, and ingress through hallways. And so they were interpreting the laws saying that you can't have patients in beds in the hallways. And so was citing them. And hospitals let us know, like, hey, this is a justified medical emergency.
It's going to just raise more costs.
Yeah. So that's what we did. We flexed current regulations to where it would allow for, the folks with boots on the ground to make a justified emergency call, to where it would allow for temporarily putting patients, stabilizing them, putting them in beds, and using hallways as long as it was safe.
Yep. I'd say some of the three big things. I mean, we had the SCDOT modernization.
Huge.
We had the income tax cut. Mm-hmm. And we also had the tort reform, liquor liability.
Yeah. Yep.
Or the insurance ad hoc committee that we set up.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so again, like when it comes to like that tax reform, we did do the income tax. We did do the small business tax. We also, did the boat tax.
And we did tax conformity.
Yeah. Now, the tax conformity was not passed in the Senate.
Right.
But everything else, income tax, small business tax, and the boat tax, all got passed and got to the governor and signed into law. So 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
I agree with that. We did the Safe Schools Act.
Yep.
Trying to protect our schools. We did the Educator Safety and Classroom Act.
Yeah, that's right.
And we put the streaming of all school boards.
Oh, yeah.
School board meetings.
Yep. And we also did tenure.
Yes.
Where we brought some accountability and consistency to tenure in higher education. So that way, all of our colleges and universities are working out of a consistent framework for tenure. And it also has an accountability trigger in there, to where if you do have someone that has tenure and is acting like an idiot, there's some accountability for there, and they can lose that tenure and their job. So all of those things were important. We also did some things for law and order.
Yeah. Organized retail crime.
Yep.
That was at the beginning.
And another one that was really, I think, just a personal one for you and I, because this was in our freshman term when we were working on the fentanyl stuff, raising penalties for folks who were dealing in fentanyl. That was passed in our freshman term.
Right.
But we couldn't get the fentanyl-induced homicide.
Correct.
And so folks who are knowingly dealing drugs laced with fentanyl, if it results in death, they could be charged with additional felonies and murder. So that was another important one, especially here in York County, because our freshman term we had a big fentanyl bust.
Yes, a massive one, and that's one of the things we came in fighting for.
Yeah,
right away.
That's right.
We had the street takeover.
Yeah, that was our colleague, Representative Dave Martin, out of Fort Mill.
And you're starting to see some of these other cities come in and say, hey, we've got to do something about this.
Yeah. And later on in the session, we also had the that immigration enforcement.
Yep.
Where it said that local law enforcement has to communicate, collaborate with federal authorities when it comes to if they pick up someone who is in the country illegally.
And we also passed that only citizens can vote. Wouldn't think that needs to be passed, but citizen-only voting passed. That was 3720.
Yeah.
And juvenile crime reform. That was something that I think Representative Cox was working on.
Yeah, he led that effort and chaired that committee. I was also on that committee with him. That was an eye-opening committee for sure. It was heartbreaking at times hearing the testimony where you had young kids at such an early age getting put into some of our DJJ facilities for things like truancy or things that you wouldn't think should result in that outcome, but due to that's the current law, folks' hands are tied. Agency directors don't legislate, they don't write law, they don't interpret it, they literally just follow the law and the procedures, and so that committee, that DJJ committee, is going to be an ongoing effort, I'm sure.
Yes.
It's just there's always going to be problems arising. There's got to be, I think, some restructuring, maybe some efficiencies put in there. And so we'll see. But we did get, I think, 1 or 2 bills passed out. But let's talk about, I know some of your priorities, also mine, but you've taken the lead and the forefront on this with online protections.
Well, so one thing I'm really pushing for us to have a standing committee to review many of these bills so people could be educated. We're seeing so much misinformation being put out there involving anything with emerging tech. But we started off with the Social Media Act, which was the Social Media Design Bill, 3431. That is caught up in court right now. We also passed Disclosure of Intimate Images, which was 3058, and obscene visual representation of CSAM, or child sex abuse, in 3045, stopping people creating AI videos of CSAM, even though might not be a real person. But the big one was Shazam.
And that was like the fourth quarter Hail Mary too.
That was a lot of work.
I mean, because I know you the last month or so were really like stressed, but in a good way. You were motivated. That's what I should have said.
I was like, well, why aren't we getting this heard?
Yeah.
Why isn't this getting a committee hearing? And then whenever we come down to the last minute, it was like, okay, we're going to make a unanimous consent, but someone's going to object to it. And I was like, okay, well, let's see who that person's going to be. And so I spent a lot of my time over in the Senate as that bill was moving, just trying to ensure that it wasn't going to get caught up, hung up.
Well, and if it was a legitimate objection, you can mitigate that before the unanimous consent was brought.
Correct.
To where it could get to the floor and maybe find.
And there was some language, Senator Ott come over, and he had some language, and looking at the language did not seem like it would be that bad. However, that language was describing content, and this bill in no way, shape, or form is controlling content. It's all about features. So if we had to put that language in there, it could be a poison pill if it gets challenged in court. This will be national model policy moving forward. It does have private right of action for those companies that are $1 billion or more in revenue that are not utilizing and following the guidelines within the law. So it finally got through. That was a huge weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
We've still got a lot to get done, but it's going to require next year, and hopefully we'll return and can continue some of these fights.
And just on the medical side, a little bit of updates. There were some folks asking about the over-the-counter ivermectin bill.
Yes.
That we amended to put behind the counter. So if you want to buy ivermectin, you have to go to the counter, talk to the pharmacist, making sure that you're getting the right dosage, making sure you're getting the human form of the drug, which I know sounds wild, but there is veterinary uses for ivermectin, obviously. And so that passed out of the Senate with amendments. We tried to unanimous consent it the last week, and Representative Cobb Hunter objected. And so the time was running out. But due to the special session, it is still on the calendar, and hopefully we have plans and talking with our leadership. I've had assurances that we're going to be able to get it whenever we have to come back for conference reports, budget, and those types of things. So look forward to getting the third reading on that. We're going to concur with those Senate amendments and hopefully get that down to the governor for his signature. Also, we did finally pass. It took 4 years, but we did finally pass medical billing transparency, or patient-friendly billing.
Cheers.
And that was like one of my, I thought, most elementary bills, that when you go to a hospital or a healthcare facility, you're owed a receipt.
Give me a receipt.
I mean, and the great thing was I didn't bring government involved in the process. I just said, hey, if the facility doesn't give or provide the patient a electronic receipt or a physical receipt, you can't take them to collections. So there's a financial motive for the facility or the hospital to follow the law. And we finally got that passed. It took 4 years, but we got it passed. It is now, the Senate put some amendments on it that we've got to rework, but I think we're still going to be able to get that done. Senator Ott, a former House member, is on that conference committee. Him and I have already spoken several times, got all the stakeholders around the table, and I'm hopeful that we can finally get that to the governor's desk, because that's a win-win for everybody.
I agree.
On the bad news front, physician non-competes didn't make it through. I think
Kind of guessed that with all the fighting.
a senator who represents a rural district of the state put his name on it, and so the Senate could take it up, which is unfortunate because that's I think that's just another step in creating a better environment for healthcare professionals to want to come to South Carolina and work within their scope of practice. But folks, we'll pre-file it, later on this year. Hopefully, come November, you and I'll be fortunate enough to get reelected, and we'll start over.
I'd like to get rid of that. Put your name on it.
Man, So it is what it is, folks. But that's one thing I've learned about being in the General Assembly.
It's a lot easier to kill a bill than it is to pass a bill.
Well, and that's another thing in the General Assembly. You've got to understand and know how to lose, okay? Because there's a lot of personal setbacks when it comes to trying to advance your legislation more than there are wins, right? And being able to lose like a professional and then using that as fuel to fire you to come back and do the same battle again with maybe a different sort of set of members in the House or members in the Senate, you've got to be resilient, you've got to be determined, but I think that, as a Gamecock fan, losing builds character.
I'm a Tiger fan, so I handle it a little bit differently. I don't know about all that.
Well, speaking of the Tigers, I think they were the 15th seed in the ACC baseball tournament, only a little bit better than Duke. So I'm not saying South Carolina's any better in baseball this year, but we don't.
You act like Clemson fans follow baseball.
You used to. But anyway, so that was a little bit of recap of not just Sine Die Week, but also sort of just wanted to highlight some of the things that we did get done in the General Assembly this year.
Yeah, and as soon as we wrapped up, we had we kind of get together and talk about the accomplishments. But we were caught right back up because the governor's calling us right back in.
Yeah, right. So Thursday there was no popping of champagne or this, that, and the other.
Had to be in on Friday
because literally I think by 7:00 we were already notified. So we get out at 5. By 7 we're already being called back by the governor. So it's basically like, hey, make sure I have another clean shirt.
Go home, get your clothes, come back.
Yeah, and and we'll talk about that redistricting effort right here in the next segment.
Yeah, and Saturday we had the South Carolina Republican Federation of Women came down.
Oh yeah, that's
so
right.
I went to that. And I was like, "There's no point in me coming home. Gonna have to be here Friday. Got to be here Saturday for that." The wife was gonna come down. She ended up backing out, but that was a good event. I did learn that I can get parking tickets though.
Oh yeah, no one's above the law, Representative Guffey.
Yeah, I didn't think it was like not gonna be there long, and just run in, and it was like a bank parking spot. I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. Next thing I know, I got a $75 parking ticket, which I can't find now, so I don't know how I'm gonna pay it if I can't.
$75.
$75
for parking in a bank parking lot.
Yeah.
Oh, privately.
I guess at a certain time it becomes a private parking lot.
Oh well, you better call the city.
Well, it's not city; it's private. So I got to figure it out. But anybody that's got any advice on that, let me know.
All right. See you right after the break. This episode of Pints of Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties.
All right. Welcome back to the second segment. It's going to be a fun one. We get to fight a little bit.
No. I think we actually agree on this. I just think when it came down to the vote, you got a little pissed off. I mean, we had heard 72 hours about how we were racist.
Yeah.
I think that got under your skin a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
And, you were like, F it, we're doing it live.
Yeah.
We're doing it live.
And Heath was like, hey, talk about this. I was like, look, call me out on the podcast. Let's have the conversation live on the podcast. Mm-hmm. Let's have this discussion.
Yeah, so this redistricting effort, just a little bit of recap. We had that Clay v. Louisiana decision. They had a minority majority district that was found to be unconstitutional. While it's not apples to apples because all of our 7 congressional districts were found to be constitutional in the Alexander or what was it, the NAACP South Carolina chapter v. Alexander, whatever that was.
That doesn't make
after
any sense
the
to me.
After the 2020 census maps were redrawn. So anyway, it's not apples to apples, but basically what the Calais decision did was it sort of changed the court's interpretation of using race as a determining factor when you're drawing congressional district lines. It said that you can't do that you shouldn't use race as a determining factor. Also, it limited folks challenging racial gerrymandering because you could, before the Calais decision, you could argue disparate outcomes in a congressional race of a district as proof that racial gerrymandering existed, even though maybe that wasn't the intent of the redrawn lines. So the Calais decision more narrowly interpreted that sort of long-standing sort of court precedence, and that fundamentally changed this argument, right?
Yeah.
And so folks in the White House looked at the 6th district here in South Carolina and said, hey, we want Clyburn we want that
to be a Republican.
6th, yep, to be a more toss-up type Republican district. Let's get a 7-0 map, and so that's what's gotten us here, right?
Yeah, but the argument was that we drew it just to silence the black vote.
Right.
And that was just false. If one district wasn't made up predominantly of the black vote to begin with, then it wouldn't be considered silencing.
Yeah, and so let's set the stage here for what we got into on the House floor this past Friday after signing die Thursday. Folks, for the last, since I would say 2014, 2015, during the Obama administration, Democrats have had what I would consider a concerted effort to challenge congressional district maps in states like North Carolina, in Florida, in Maryland, in Massachusetts, in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was a big one, in Illinois, and in those 6 or 7 states between 2015 and 2024, they redrew lines that gave a net, I believe it was like 13 or 14 Democratic seats. So Democrats picked up, just by redrawing lines in that list of states.
I mean, if you can't win, cheat, which is what we keep being told, right?
Yeah, right. So what I'm saying is, over the last decade, the National Democratic Party and their allies have been doing this on a multi-state, on a national level, to take advantages where they could to challenge congressional maps. And they redrew the lines that benefited them. And so what I think we're seeing now, we saw it earlier this year in Virginia, the attempt to redraw those lines because the governor, in that state government is a little more purpley blue. So they've made attempts to redraw their lines that would benefit Democrats. This is, I think, the pendulum swinging back the other way. So you have this effort in Texas. You have this effort in Tennessee. You have this effort now in South Carolina.
To a lot of the Southeast.
Yep. And so what I will not listen to from Democrats, our colleagues on the House, is this moral high ground that how dare we while they're clutching their pearls. I'm not listening to that at all, because there are colleagues across this country who are a Democrat, have been doing this for a decade, and it's not been reported. It hasn't.
They weren't clutching pearls then.
That's right. And so I'm not listening to that. That argument against this current effort is bogus to me. It doesn't hold any water.
Now, where we do agree is the mid-decade districting. Right. I believe that due to that decision coming in so late, we're in a time crunch. Yeah, and so the problem is we can't choose a map.
Yep,
really.
And so that latest SCOTUS decision, the Calais v. Louisiana, just came out in like mid-April, so a month ago. And so this effort obviously has been a hasty one, and I think that's what's led to some of my indigestion about it.
Yeah.
So we've set sort of the stage for what we have been dealing with on the House floor the past week or so.
And we've actually discussed it on the podcast. Both of us publicly came out and said we were not going to support redistricting.
Right, and the fundamental reason, folks, is our current York County sits in the fifth congressional district, the coolest district by far in South Carolina.
Well, it was until we put Oconee in it.
I'm saying the current fifth.
Okay.
And so the current fifth district is made up of York. It's a York sort of county central district. It's got Cherokee, a little bit of Spartanburg, and then Union, Fairfield, Chester, Lancaster,
Sumter,
Kershaw, Sumter, and Lee counties. And guess what, folks? For like the last 50 years, guess where the congressional member has resided? In the York County area, right? So
yeah.
our very own mayor, John Geddes, I believe it was his father,
Yes.
Tom Geddes, was our congressman back in the day. Guess where he was from? Rock Hill. He was followed by John Spratt from
out of
the
Fort
York.
Mill.
Out of the York. Yep, area, which is 10-minute drive to the west of Rock Hill. Followed up by Mick Mulvaney out of the Indian Land area.
Yep.
And then our very own Ralph Norman. So what's that tell you, folks? York County has a major impact of who represents us in D.C. And so that was, I think, what you and I agreed upon was...
We don't want to lose our voice.
That's right. We want to make sure we're maximizing our impact. We want to make sure that York County's concerns are being addressed on a federal level, and that is why we weren't in support of this new map that we were considering after Sine Die.
Yeah.
Another reason I think for me was because of the Calais decision coming in just 30 days ago, back in April. Any effort to redraw lines before a June 9th primary date was going to be hasty. And when you rush things, you miss things, you get inaccuracies. And that, I knew that was just going to be problematic to pull off with any voter integrity because, folks, it's one thing to redraw a line, but you got to understand the impacts of what that does to your folks who are responsible for the ballots, receiving them, the chain of custody of them, making sure that the right people are voting in the right precincts, and all of those logistical matters that come into play when we talk about having an election. And so I was like, that's way too much to put on those folks at this late juncture. It was just, we weren't going to be able to pull it off. And as evidence of that was the maps that the House approved and went over to the Senate, and it got brought up in the Senate debate, had precincts that no longer exist. So the map was using old, outdated data. So I believe just in Lancaster County alone,
11 precincts.
It used 11 precincts that don't even exist anymore. It also didn't account for 14 new precincts that exist now. So just in Lancaster County alone, there was basically 25 errors in naming of precincts and those types of things. That's just one county, 25 errors. And so, again, when you're rushing things like this, those types of errors get made. I'm not saying that that's the death nail, like you can't fix them prior to, but it just leads to bad decisions. And so I was never in support of this. I'm not opposed to looking at redrawing lines, but to throw away and disregard historical processes, how we do things here in South Carolina. Never before have I known, and I've never taken part in a reapportionment. I've never taken a part in redistricting and redrawing these lines, but I did go to school on it. Guffey, you went to school on it this past week. Every member that I've
been
talked
part
to,
of it, not congressional side,
right?
But drawing lines for the county,
right? And we heard it was pretty much unanimous.
Yeah,
this was not the way it's ever been done before. We never got handed a map from DC, and it was never done in 30 days either. It was always months and months. They said 3
even
to 6
on the county
months.
level, it was over a month.
Yeah, and folks, this effort, we're not giving the public any time to give us feedback.
Yes.
Right. And so for those reasons alone, I was voting. I was always a no. I was voting against it. Not to mention, lastly, the confusion that it causes amongst voters. Guffey and I have always talked about we want more people involved in local elections. We want more people involved, especially in primary voting. I'm tired of only the hardcore coming out and voting in a primary, because if you only have 8 or 10% of your electorate deciding who the Republican candidate will be, whether it's in a state house race or Senate race or governor race, that 8 to 10% is determining who will basically be the next governor or the next House rep.
I agree, and that's why it's important for those who feel like, oh, well, I'm just not going to vote in this primary because I disagree with one decision.
Right.
They're giving the seat to the person that they really don't want in there. So you've got to come together, because you're not going to agree with the decisions of every person that is your representative.
Yep.
And you've got to decide who is best and vote in that primary.
Yeah, and so for those three, splitting York County, I was a no. Disregarding South Carolina values, the institutions, and the way we've done how we've done things in the past, I was a no. And then suppressing voter turnout. When you cause confusion, when folks don't know what district they're in, it causes confusion. And guess what? That leads to apathy, and people won't get motivated to vote. Well, guess what? On the other side of the aisle, Democrats are highly motivated to vote. This is a mid-year election. It's not a presidential one. Even though we do have a governor, hopefully that will increase Republican turnout. But it isn't a presidential election. It's an off-year election. So political trends tell us whatever party has the White House in the midterm election, they lose seats. And so if we're going to redraw, we don't want to do it in a midterm election if you're a Republican.
I would agree with that.
And so those were the three principal reasons that I was like, hell no. I'm not a no, I'm a hell no. Because I don't want to dilute York County's impact of who represents us in D.C. And I'll give you a simple math. If York County represents 200,000 voters of the potential 730,000, give or take, in SC5, if we were to take out 50 or even 70,000 of those and put them in 6, guess what? It dilutes our voice in Washington. Because now, instead of having 200,000 voters that the congressman who represents the 5th has to listen to, now they don't have to listen to 125,000.
Yeah.
Right? And it becomes someone else's problem. And when you're talking about key infrastructure projects like the 77 corridor, when you talk about key economic development projects that need federal funding, to split York County is a bad idea. And
unless you do it along the Mason-Dixon River, then it works. Other than that, it does not work.
And so for all of those reasons, I was a no.
And while you were a hell no, I was a oh no.
Right.
So, I mean, and I tried to explain that as I went up there, because I was, and I posted, I would be a no if this vote happened today. Yeah. But I was a 40% yes, 60% no. And it's like, I understand the push from both sides. But whenever you sit in a chamber and you're being called racist day after day after day, and you're being attacked constantly by the left, even though you're kind of in agreement with what they're saying as far as not redistricting, and I'm fighting with people on the right within my own district to say, hey, this is why I think this is a bad idea. It's one of those decisions where it's like, why am I even fighting for this? Hey, if my citizens want it, why am I even arguing? So I had to speak to say, look, I don't necessarily agree that this is the best idea. But at the end of the day, I'm sitting down here to represent the people that sent me here.
Yeah, and I think that's an opportunity where we can educate the voters, right? For anyone who were to call me and say, hey, I'm in support of this map, I'd ask them why. They would usually give me a few reasons, because we got to get one of them being, we got to get Clyburn out of there. And I'm like, that's not even our district. Right? So, again.
But Robbie Robbins made a great point on so many people being within the 6 and not feeling like they had a voice.
Right, and that's the 6th problem. Right? I don't represent them. I'm not the governor. You know what I mean? And as harsh as that is, I'm representing 46. You're representing 48.
Well, the only reason I wouldn't vote for the map is because it split York County.
That's right.
If I could have made York County whole, I was 100% okay with it.
Yeah.
Regardless of timing or anything else.
That would have been a harder vote.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you kept York
Because
County
you had
in-
numerous reasons. I only had that one reason. If
Yeah.
you're going to split York County, then I'm a no vote.
Yeah, and so...
And trying to explain to my citizens in Lake Wiley and in Rock Hill why it's important to worry about Fort Mill and Indian Land, they're like, we don't care about them Yankees anyway. Like, let them cut off.
Right. And so, and folks, we haven't even brought up what this is going to cost to the state. Right? We're supposed to be the fiscal conservatives here. We're supposed to be the fiscal conservative party. And we have no problem spending this money right now.
I would
in
argue
an effort to gain one seat. And again, folks, I get it. You've got states in the Northeast, you've got New Mexico, Arizona, and some other ones that are gerrymandered to blue, right? You literally have states in the Northeast that are 55-45 or 60-40, and it is 0 Republicans, right? 0. And it's in like 8 or 10 states in the Northeast. I think it's over in New Mexico as well. I'd have to check my math. Viewers, check my math. But it's the same thing. All I'm saying is if we're a 60-40 state, man, we've got 6 out of 7.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know?
I would still argue that if Democrats were in power and the roles were reversed,
They do the same thing.
they would do the exact same thing.
You and I agree on that.
Yeah. And this boils down to, and I would argue whenever we talk about cost, what is the cost of having another Democrat majority?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that the Republican majority has been very fiscally responsible as of late, but I would say, what is the cost of having a Democrat majority? Because we have seen that over and over and over again.
Yep. And folks, these are all the things that we're considering while listening to these debates. But again, at the end of the day, for me, and you know, Guffey, you're born and raised here in South Carolina. There is something in the water down here. There's something in our DNA down here. I am not accepting a map from DC. I'm just not.
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons I was a no to begin with. It's like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And if you listen to Rage Against the Machine, that's me. If you want me to do something, try to tell me to do it and see how well that works out for you.
But then you bow and kiss the ring.
No, that was after all the Dems tell me I was racist and everything else.
And so again, fundamentally, I just had this immediate kickback on any map that originated from not within our state. And I kept hearing that from members off the record that I said, hey man, let's amend this to include York County. Well, we have to run that up to da-da-da-da, and DC would have to approve it. I'm like, F that guy. Like, whoever their map guy is not local. He does not know South Carolina. He does not know the 5th. He doesn't know York County.
I think adding Clemson and Carolina in the same congressional district
they need to trust their, again, while I share in a political affiliation with our president, I don't share his disregard for South Carolina values, South Carolina people, and its institutions of which we carry out this process. And that, at the end of the day, summed it up for me, and I'm a hell no.
But I do support our governor. And our governor coming in and saying, we need to do this.
Oh, I didn't have a problem with considering it.
Right. But whenever we start talking about things coming down, it's not like Trump himself is saying, we got to do this. And I understand a lot of people have this fear of, oh, this is going to be bad. Well, that was one of my reasons for saying no to begin with.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not going to do something based on how my next election is going to go.
Right.
And if that's a fear, then I need to go ahead and remove that to begin with.
Well, and let's talk about that too. So that's the redistricting effort. It ultimately passed, folks. Unfortunately for folks who shared sort of the way I was perceiving this redistricting
there was
effort.
no chance of it not passing. It only needed 50%.
Right.
We had a
it was
2/3 majority.
It was 73-37, so it didn't really get a serious challenge. But when it comes down to this thing has moved to the Senate now. They have worked over the weekend, Memorial Day weekend, by the way. Thank you to all those who gave their last full measure of devotion, sacrificing their lives for this country, by the way.
I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
Nothing solidified my vote more than to hear Dems talk about how much money we're costing the state while they sat there and demand us to read every line of the bill. 3 hours of reading.
Yeah.
while we're locked in the chamber.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a smoker.
Yeah.
3 hours is a long time. I'm about ready to kill somebody by that time. Like, let me out of this chamber.
Yeah.
You cannot confide me that way.
And we were remanded to our chairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with no devices.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about those games and shenanigans that got played late. When we got through all the amendments and we got to the bill, we did have a Democratic colleague call for the reading clerk, Bubba Cromer, who is retiring this year.
He went out with a bang.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Did you see his AI post of
Yes.
a book? It was like an audio version.
Yes.
It was great.
And so Bubba had to read, 110 pages? And it wasn't English. He had to read every precinct within our state. So the bill was maybe 2 to 4 pages.
Yeah.
The other 100 and some odd pages were literally Ebenezer and
Yeah.
the precinct. You know what I mean? The number. And then Ebenezer 2 or whatever.
Yep.
It was ridiculous. And
I read all of the House rules that night.
oh yeah.
Front to cover, multiple times.
And folks, it got chippy. It got pretty immature, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, man,
Well, we didn't have dinner. We didn't even break for dinner.
No,
like
not
we
at all.
thought we were getting out at 8,
Eight,
and
yeah.
it was like, okay, we pushed it. We're gonna get a late dinner, and then all of a sudden you call for the reading of the bill, and we don't get out until 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Like that is the frustration.
Yeah, we need to change that rule.
Yeah.
So I suggested changing this rule where you can call for any bill to get read. And I found out,
I think you should have to be blind if you call for that.
hey, it's in our Constitution. It is in the Constitution. So we would have to change the Constitution to get
That's
rid
whenever
of
we might still elect people that don't know how to read.
I mean, who knew? So anyway, so that was the redistricting effort. That's what we dealt with this past week. It's now over in the Senate. They did pass it out on second reading, and people are taking a victory lap. The only problem is on third reading, the Democrats can't. The amendments that got pulled on second are now going to be put back on third. Probably going to cause at least another day or two of debate. They reconvene at 11 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Well, guess what happens 2 hours prior to the Senate coming in? Early voting. And folks, the longer this debate goes on, the more early votes get tabulated, the stronger the challenge to this law becomes on equal protection for every voter here in South Carolina. And so this is still a toss-up issue. We'll continue the efforts, but I do want to address the elephant in the room. All of these things, it don't matter where you fall in the issue. I think this goes to the impact that President Donald Trump is having on whether it's midterm elections, redrawing, or whatever, down to a granular state level. I don't think I've ever seen before. I mean, I heard it multiple times while we were debating this issue on the House floor. Hey, did you see what happened in Indiana?
Yeah. Well, that's the politicians talking.
Right?
Yeah.
We heard, hey, man, you got to vote for this. I said, why? And they said, well, because then Trump will come after you. And I said, why would he come after a House rep? And he said, well, they did that. He went after 8 state
Those are people that had primaries.
Yeah. He went after 8 state senators in Indiana that voted against this similar effort in Indiana. And guess what? All Trump candidates won, 8 of 8. And so that sends some shockwaves to the political ecosystem, right? We also saw it in Kentucky when Senator Thomas Massie lost his Republican primary.
I'm thankful he's gone there.
We saw it in Louisiana.
He's part of that Make Liberty Win group.
We also saw it in Louisiana. Senator Bill Cassidy lost. That's now in a runoff between Representative Letlow and someone else. It looks like the Trump-endorsed Representative Letlow is going to be the next congressperson to represent that district out of Louisiana. And those are just the political realities that folks who hold elected positions in state government have to consider.
I mean, go back and look at Russell Fry's election. He was a House rep, like us, and he runs against Rice, who opposed Trump on this issue, and all of a sudden, this House rep is the new congressman.
Yeah, and so...
And it was a wipeout. It wasn't even a close race.
Yeah, and so I say all this to say, I'm not saying that weighed into my decision or your decision. Obviously, it didn't weigh into my decision because I voted no. But there are folks who
I didn't weigh into mine because I didn't have a primary.
Yeah, right.
But
I'm saying there are folks around this state. We have 16 Republicans who are in primaries, and they're doing some political math right now. Not only are they thinking about what's right for their district, right?
They're thinking about the crazy person that might be running against them and how they could truly harm their district.
Right. And so, and again, let's give a hypothetical. Let's use Fort Mill as a hypothetical. Our colleague David Martin is running for re-election this year. He is facing a primary challenge from, some call her doctor, I do not, Elizabeth Enns. And David is probably doing, hypothetically speaking, some political calculus of, hey, if I vote against this, will Trump come out and endorse my opponent? Not for his personal gain, but for the community gain, right? He is born and bred Fort Mill. Well, Elizabeth Enns just moved there.
Yeah.
Right? And so
she was in my district before.
Right. And so he's probably weighing, if I vote against this, and again, I'm guessing, if I vote against this and Trump endorses Enns, that may hand an election primary victory to Enns. And he knows that's going to be detrimental for Fort Mill, right? In his mind, that's his opinion. She ain't from here. She doesn't represent Fort Mill. She represents like 5% sort of the voters.
Now, I will say, like, I tried to give David that argument. David doesn't care what is coming down from D.C.
No.
He's looking at it as, well, my district is not the same as Rock Hill. Yeah. And perhaps this gives us the opportunity of having 2 seats instead of 1.
Right.
I just disagree on that math.
I do too. But he did lay out that argument on Facebook. If you want to go to it, go check out David Martin's
Martin for House.
Yep, Martin for House. You can go read that. It's pretty.
And if you see any Monster Liberty comments, notice they blocked me, so I can't reply.
But so anyway, folks, we have 16 Republicans in the House, all facing primary challenges, and they all have to consider: do I want Trump to endorse my opponent? Now, again, we didn't do that, but that is the political calculus you have to make when you're running for office. Now, I don't give a shit if President Trump really wanted me to vote this way, I probably got a phone call. But if he also wants to seek reprisals on me in 28, look, this is the way I look at it. If I lose a House seat that pays me $10,000 for 6 months of work, okay? And folks, it ain't 6 months of work.
You made that in an hour, don't you?
It's not 6 months of work, by the way. It's full time.
Yes.
I guarantee you, the minute we gavel out of here, I'm going to be in a few ad hocs. I already have 4 things are already on my schedule just by the end of August that I got to go do.
You know how hard it is just to convince reps that are freshmen now to run again?
Yeah.
Because they're like, the math doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. So it's full time. So what I'm saying is the political downside for me is that I lose an election in 28 because President Trump didn't like the way I voted on this. Well, guess what? The downside is I have more time for private pursuits. I have more time with my family. I have more time with the companies that I operate. I got more time to perfect a golf game. Hey, President Trump, let's play golf in 28. So what I'm saying is my downside ain't that bad, right? I don't have a dream of being a professional politician or a career politician. Like, again, I'm just thankful that I don't have those ambitions, right? I don't want to be in Congress. I don't want to be a state senator. I don't want to do all those things. I enjoy representing Rock Hill in the 46th House District. That's it. And I'm blessed that I can do that, but I'm going to vote the way I think is right for Rock Hill. And that's it. So if I keep it small and simple, I'm good. And if I lose an election, my downside is I got more time to pursue some things that I've probably been neglecting ever since I've been a House member. While it's an honor and a privilege, it's not my life, right? And
I will say in my district, I've got 2 different areas combined together.
Yeah.
I've got Lake Wiley and
then
North Rock Hill. And I would say in Rock Hill, I was getting more of the 50-50. Like, don't redistrict, pro-redistrict. Right. In Lake Wiley, it was overwhelmingly, maybe 90-10. I will say, like, some of the Republican women that I met with on that Saturday, they were understanding where I was coming from, why I'd be a no vote. But the overwhelming response that I got from Lake Wiley was pro-redistricting. And then all the no's, like, don't redistrict. and people call me racist. People call me a Trump bootlicker. People call me a cuck. Whatever it is, constantly.
The hell is
through
that?
Email. That's for another episode, so we don't fall out of a different rating here.
Hey, 2 listeners. Get out your vocab calendar word of the day.
Don't. I would not suggest Googling that. It will throw off your algorithm.
Hey, kids. Don't be a what?
But at the end of the day, it's like, even if I disagree, it's like, do I believe enough in this to fight against it whenever the overwhelming majority of my citizens want?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so that's the only reason I gave the speech, was to say, this is how I feel. I don't believe that it's the best thing for York County. However, according to people within my district, they believe that it is best for my district. And I'm sent down there to represent them, so I have to vote in that case. If I'm not overwhelmingly convicted to go against them, then I need... It's great whenever my views and my constituents' views align.
Yeah. Well, and again, folks, that is why it is very important to reach out to your legislators and not be disrespectful, but just let them know where you stand on some issues, because a lot of the times we're hearing from 5% of the electorate.
Well, I will say, every Democrat that emailed me from outside of my district, they counted as -2 votes. Like, I mean, seriously, if you're going to waste my time trying to insult me and you don't even live in my district, do you really think that I'm going to listen to you? Right. I'm not one of these people. I will tell you quickly, even if you live within my district, I do not represent you if I disagree with you. Vote for someone that does.
Right.
I'm going to vote based on what my beliefs are.
Well, and a lot of times, you and I have talked about this on a prior episode. Folks, if you write all House members, I'll see the issue in the top sentence or two of the subject of the email, and then I'll scroll down all the way to the bottom and see the signature, and it's like, from Somerville. And I'm like, oh, that's Robbie Robbins, or that's Greg Ford, or whoever. And then I delete it, right? I don't respond to it because that's not my constituent. Now, I do try to be mindful of folks in York County, even if they're in a neighboring, if they're in yours or Tommy's. I agree. I'll still try to write them back.
And on the issues that I specialize in.
Right.
If someone's having trouble with their child, or they're having trouble with a tech issue, and they're reaching out, I'm happy to jump in. Or another rep says, hey, Rep Guffey, can you help with this? I'm happy to get involved. But if you're just sending out these blind mass emails...
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I ain't reading it.
So, folks, that's where the redistricting sort of fell in the House. It did pass out. I believe it was somewhere around 73 to 37. It was pretty overwhelming. I think myself, Tom Hartnett, Dennis Moss, Nathan Ballantyne were 4 Republicans that did not vote for it and support the effort. It is now over in the Senate. They reconvene at 11 a.m. for third reading, which we anticipate Democrats will be putting amendments on. That's probably going to take another 12 to 24 hours.
Push them into the next day.
To sort out. Well within a couple days of early voting, and that's going to be problematic when it's challenged in court. So stay tuned on that effort. Lastly, I do want to talk about, so we adjourned wee hours of the morning on Wednesday. We stayed around because we had the pleasure of welcoming Cherry Park Elementary in on Thursday morning.
That was a highlight of the week.
It was probably the highlight of the session for me, because it is great to have kids come in, sit in the auditorium, watch a movie, and then you and I can get in front of them, talk about sort of what we do, and then just sort of throw our style in. I think you and I are pretty approachable, especially for kids.
Yeah, but we have different approaches.
Yeah, right.
So it's good.
And so, I think my message to that first class was, as an adult, you get sort of conformed to the social constructs or the political constructs of just being an adult, right? And as a kid, man, you remember being a kid, anything was possible. Anything was possible, man. Like, I was going to be an astronaut when I was like 8 years old.
Except for changing your gender.
Right. And so that was a personal dream of mine, maybe. And so I told that first class, I was like, look, I've been called a dreamer a lot of times, but I think that's what we need. I think we need more imagination. The failure to think outside the box a lot of times just sets up some limits to what is possible here in South Carolina. So don't stop dreaming. Don't stop reimagining the way things should be. Not the way they are.
What helps us in politics, though? Is truthfully, too many people get in here and then they start to fall within the system. They become part of the system,
Right.
instead of keeping their mind open.
Yeah.
And then you lose all voices.
Right.
You just become a cog in the wheel.
And wasn't it so liberating just talking to kids?
Yes.
And so I finished my little spiel. It was totally unrehearsed or whatever. And the first question, the little boy raises his hand. I think these were fourth graders. And he's like, so you're saying I could work here? And I said, well, I mean, when you go to college, you can be a page. He was like, no, but now, because I have a big imagination. And I was like, right on, man. I need to get your number. And another personal cool thing for me, and I know you got one too to share, was when, and I'm not going to say her name, so when I have kids write me, I try to, and you've always commended me on this, is I always try to handwrite notes back to people, especially folks in my area. And I didn't know this little girl, but I got a letter from her earlier this year. And man, it was like a 2-pager front and back, single spaced.
I still remember whenever you got it.
And
you're like, how cool is this?
I was like, this is awesome, because I used to be that little girl.
Yeah.
Like when I was that age, I was doing same like nerdy stuff like that. And so she wrote me,
nerd.
hey man, look where I was a nerd. Look where I'm at, dog. So all I'm saying is, so this little girl took the time to write this long, long letter, and I was like, the least I'm going to do, I'm going to stop and spend time and write this girl back. And so I wrote her a personal note back, and I said, hey, love it that you're interested, love it that you're asking me all these questions. I tried to answer them the best I could, and I said, keep them coming. Like, let's stay in touch. I want to see you grow up and graduate high school. And any other questions you got or your friends have in your classroom, just keep them coming. I got to meet her. She was literally one of the fourth grade class students in the classroom, and she literally raised her hand. She was like, hey, I'm so-and-so. And I was like, no way. And she goes, yeah, you wrote me back. I'm like, oh, I know who you are. I have your letter still on my desk. And she was just,
ecstatic.
I could see it just made her day. She was, you know what I mean? Like, that's where you really understand that, look, we hold a position of sort of respect and, in her eyes, some admiration, which is always welcome. And, man, it made my day. It warmed my heart. And it was great to see, I don't know if that was her mom or the teacher or a chaperone, but she was like, hey, do you mind taking a picture? And, like, this girl and all of her 3 or 4 friends right around her were like, this is so cool. He knows you know what I mean? And I was like, man, that warms my heart. That was the highlight of the session for me. You know who you are. Thank you for coming. And I know you had a similar.
Yeah, so as the kids were walking in, I walked up and caught the first group. And then within the first group, first thing they did was go in and kind of go to the bathroom before they went into the movie room. And one of the fourth grade boys is wearing a less than 3 hat.
Yeah.
Which was just awesome. And one of the chaperones brought me up to introduce me to him. I was able to shake his hand. And, you know, I hung around for that first filming, and to answer questions and kind of go through. But then we had 2 other groups coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, in between these groups, I've got to go get a challenge coin. I only had 1 challenge coin left.
Right.
And, end of the year, worked out perfect. Had 1 single challenge coin, and I had to go back, chase down my challenge coin, and then go and chase down the group to find the kid to give him his challenge coin. But his mom ended up posting, talking about how it made his day. It was just great to answer questions from kids. We even got some crazy questions. I think one of them was about tampons in the bathroom.
Yeah.
That one was cut off pretty quick.
Yeah. Man, that's
they asked Heath, do you like Donald Trump?
Yeah. Right. It was pretty wild. And so my pastor, Jeff Hayes, he's a dog, I can say his name. He was there with his son, and we were talking after church today. He's like, man, you and Brandon Guffey should take this thing on the road and go talk to schools. He's like, y'all are just like, he's like, Heath, you're very honest and like fully transparent. Like he's like, you answer that Trump question.
And Guffey makes them feel like anything's possible.
You know? And I was like, that's a good idea, man. We should start talking to schools and like do this in the off session.
Like, I'm in 5th grade. I can do what he does.
Right. I mean, look, folks, we have the mentality of 7th grade down. Hey, middle school.
My maturity's more high school.
Middle school, elementary schools. Y'all need us to come talk to you about government? Holla.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Actually, especially in York County.
It would be
I
so
think
much
we should
fun.
come in, just go into an auditorium, just do a Q&A.
Yeah, man.
Let's just ramble it off.
100%. Be approachable to young kids and hopefully inspire them to maybe not run for office, but at least like participate.
But at least they understand what the process is.
Yeah. Yep.
Because without asking those questions, and I mean, I felt this way even coming out of school. Like I was scared to ask certain things because people might think that I'm dumb just because I asked it. Yeah. And that goes back to you just having that imagination to do whatever.
Yeah, man.
So if they're asking the questions, they're actually learning.
Yeah. So that was the great sort of send off for us that Thursday morning. Inspired me to, like as the battery is like draining towards the end of a session, get that little pick me up and talk to those young people about how important it is to participate in government. Was just special. I really, really enjoyed it.
I did as well. It actually gave it a little bit of extra energy, as you were saying, because I was so worn out, ready to get home.
Right.
Because I'd stayed over the weekend. It was like,
yeah,
I've got to get home. And yeah, that gave a little bit of extra energy.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks, kids of Cherry Park. Those fourth grade classes were awesome. Thanks for the inspiration. So
to make it better, I pulled up to pick up Callahan that afternoon because my son goes to that school. And I always mentioned to him, and I said, okay, how many of you have seen the old Volkswagen van or the van that's got all the stickers on it? And so many of them raised their hand. But as I pulled up, all the kids, because we're up at the top part, and all the kids were out there. And as I pulled up, they're all waving and saying hey and everything. Yeah. And Callahan comes walking out, and he's just looking like, how's all these people know my dad? It was pretty funny.
Well, so that ends this episode.
Yes.
Folks, thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the show. Another shout out, longtime sponsor, Comer Distributing.
Highland Brewing.
Yep.
In Asheville. Highland Haze IPA. I think my cousin got married there.
Oh, yeah?
At Highland Brewery.
Well, this is a good IPA. Folks, for folks who don't like IPAs because they're way too grassy or way too hoppy, this is probably the one that you need to go check out. So check out Highland Haze IPA.
And should we prepare people for the off season as we're going into the off season?
Yep.
It's not going to be a weekly thing because we've all got things we're getting caught up on.
100%.
So we're going to look at what, bi-weekly? I know we got to go down to Hilton Head.
Yeah. So we're thinking about trying to take this thing on the road throughout the state. Talk to Clemson. We want to go over and feature their life program over there. We want to get
Tanner with autism.
Yep, Tanner on the show. We want to highlight the Shepherd Hotel over there. So we're trying to work some of that out. We've also talked to Senator Tom Davis about doing an episode down there in his neck of the woods around Hilton Head.
We should do one with Russell up in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. So we want to go around the state and just talk to folks, give you some perspectives, maybe give you, just some regional news or things that are important to them, just to, maybe round out the show a little bit, because I do know that we're York County centric, because that's where we're from. But
we've kind of built up throughout the state.
Yeah.
And we can't thank you enough for listening to us, for following us, for liking our comments, sharing our comments.
Yeah.
The reels have really increased, and we've had tremendous success this year on our viewership.
Yeah.
We still have a couple sponsorships open.
Yeah. But thank you, Comer Distributing, for supporting the show. Thanks for those 2 listeners out there. I know that the nation is probably built up a little bit. Maybe it's to 4 listeners, but do appreciate all the support. So thanks for listening to this week.
Like and follow us on pintsandpolitics.show.
Laughing through the chaos, never below it. Pints and politics, yeah, we right above it. Sip after sip, flip the script on the news.